reeds whisper, ancient scrolls unfold, prophets penned the story, truth written in gold. Man of sorrows, acquainted with grief, despised and rejected, no relief. Silent like a lamb, slaughtered for the guilt. Crimson rivers flow when the temples tilt. By his stripes we healed, wounds bore the cost. Pierced for transgressions, the lost and lost. Who believed the report? The arms stretched wide, roots in dry ground, no beauty to pride. Isaiah saw him, the servant who bled, took on the weight where the guilty tread. Proof in the pain, prophecy true. He died, he rose, now life's renewed. Laid on him the iniquity of us all, crushed for the sins, heard redemption's call. No deceit in his mouth, no violence in his hand. The innocent lamb, fulfilling God's plan. Grave with the wicked, rich in his death. The world turned dark at his final breath. Prolonged his days, he shall see his seed. Victory written where the scars would bleed.
Word. How's everybody doing? Thanks for joining another live. Sound a little funny. Let me mess with my sound here. Anyways, hope you guys are doing good this Thursday morning. In the future, I will be trying to do these more. There we go. I'll be trying to do these more in the like mid-afternoon or something like that, as long as I'm not like stepping on anybody's toes like a Inspiring Philosophies doing a call in at Thursday. I probably won't do that. But my summer schedule with work will be changing. And so, yeah, none of these kind of earlier mornings. I know it doesn't work out for everybody. But anyways, yeah, I'm having fun doing these and I will continue to do these. This is just going to be a part of the channel now. I don't really care what it looks like. I don't care if it looks like views are a little bit down or whatever. That's okay. People will catch on. I'm going to get better at this and I'm excited. I'm excited to see where this goes. And so anyways, this, for those of you who are joining, wondering who this is for, anybody can join. If you have a question about New Testament reliability, I don't care who you are. You could be a Christian. You could be a doubting Christian and just have some nagging things bothering you. You could be atheist, Muslim, Jewish. I don't care. Somebody who doesn't believe. This is just open for anybody who has questions about the New Testament. It's not a debate me bro stream, but if you do have like pushback, and I don't care, we could do a little back and forth. But yeah, anyway, so we'll just jump into it. I got Lagging Leland. I think I talked to him Tuesday. I remember the Shredder avatar. What's up, bro?
What's going on, Testify? How you doing this morning?
Good.
I have a question. So a lot of supposed gospel contradictions, there are always these, I don't know, stupid cases where if someone read 2 verses later, they would have seen that there was no contradiction, or if they just read another part of the gospels, they would have seen that there was no contradiction, or if they just used the other half of their brain, they would have seen that there was no contradiction, that kind of stuff.
Right.
But I would like to know, what do you think is the most valid or hard to defend supposed contradiction that you've seen in terms of defending the reliability of the Gospels?
The most difficult, hard to defend one? Man, I don't know. That's a good one. I would say Luke 2:39. I mean, I've seen Alex will kind of bring this one up a bunch. We could take a look at it here. And so let me bring it up. I don't know if this is the most hard to defend. I'm just picking like a good one off the top of my head, I would say.
Yeah.
And so let me pull up. And I don't even know if it is that hard to defend, honestly. You could be like somebody like Lydia McGrew and say, I think there are a handful of contradictions in the Gospels and still come away with a very strong case for the overall high reliability of the Gospels. And any contradictions that Lydia says are actual contradictions, because she's not an inerrantist, she's going to just say that those are like at best good faith errors. This is an example of one of them that she thinks is a good faith error. And so I don't think if you're not committed to inerrancy, then this one shouldn't bother you. If you are committed in inerrancy, I don't necessarily think this one should bother you either, though. And so So the objection is that Matthew seems to have the family remain in Bethlehem. They receive the Magi, they flee out of Egypt, and only later do they settle in Nazareth. And this is all spelled out in basically the second chapter of Matthew, right?
Right.
But Luke 2:39, it just says that after Jesus was born, they did the temple requirements, and then they just returned, and that was it. And it's like, oh, okay, like what's going on here? And so you'll see. I've seen like Alex O'Connor use this one with like Dinesh D'Souza and other people, where he says that this doesn't leave any room for the Magi, Herod's massacre, or any kind of flight to Egypt. And so it's like, what's going on? And so my response, and I think like an inerrantist kind of response, would be that Luke is just compressing the timeline and he's just leaving something out. And we don't want to make an argument from silence. And so Luke 2:39 skips from the temple purification events, all of that stuff, straight just to Nazareth. But he also, in the next verse, summarizes Jesus's entire childhood in verse 40. And the child grew and became strong, filled with wisdom, and the favor of God was upon him. And the next time you see Jesus, he's 12 years old in 42, right? So clearly he's just jumping through timelines. And we know that Luke does compress his chronology elsewhere, because right here in Luke 24:50 through 53, he has the ascension. And it's like, it looks like, and people have even said, like, well, did this just all happen in one day? Is that what Luke thinks happens? Is he contradicting himself? Because in 1:3, it says that Jesus presented himself alive to them after suffering by many proofs, appearing to them 40 days and speaking to them about the kingdom of God. I don't think that Luke is that stupid that he's just going to contradict himself and he's just sloppy. I think he's just clarifying that there were 40 days after the ascension. Maybe he's running out of scroll, and he's to give a quick summary before he moves on to the sequel, right? He also skips a bunch of years between Acts 12 and Acts 13. There's like multiple years that go by, and so like this is like it ends. I want to say 36ish, and then all of a sudden, you're like early 40s. It's like, what's going on there? So this is something that Luke does. So I don't think it's like a damning contradiction at all. And how Matthew fits is that the temple presentation happened about 40 days after the birth. Matthew's Magi visit would have happened later, since Jesus was in a house, not in a manger, right? Herod kills the boys 2 and under based on the timeline after he learned from the Magi. Then he narrates the flight to Egypt, and Luke just skips those events. Now, what Lydia McGrew says is that Mary, or whoever he talked to, could have been, he did travel with Paul to Jerusalem. And it says that all the elders were present. And Luke seems to know that Mary's even present at Pentecost and different things like that. So he may have had the opportunity to speak to Jesus' own mother. I don't know. She probably was in Jerusalem. She may have recounted the temple events, even the stuff about Simeon and Anna, and then she just jumped ahead in her story for whatever reason, and then just said something like, well, yeah, and then later when we were living in Nazareth, we used to come every year to Jerusalem. And Luke could have just made an assumption. Oh, okay, well, then they just returned to Nazareth right after the dedication and wrote accordingly. So even if that was an error, it's very minor. It's chronological. It's not Luke deliberately changing the facts and it giving all this heavy redaction. And they obviously, the core story of the narrative stands. And so at most that would cause us to rethink inerrancy, but it wouldn't cause us to say these are crappy, unreliable historical texts. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's one example as far as not necessarily clean to resolve, but not that difficult, I think.
Yeah.
Or damning. It's not it's like, oh no, this throws off the whole story. You know what I mean? And so let me think if there's another one off the top of my head. A famous one, which I don't think is really hard to deal with, is the one between Mark and, hope I find this right. Where does it say preparation? Why can I not? Oh, 14. Yeah. This is the big one that everybody pulls out. So let me 14. Like I've seen like useful charts, even I don't know if you know who that is. He's a YouTuber. Even he's busted this one out. This is supposed to be the big one.
Yeah.
I've heard Tobias Singer talk about this one. I've heard Bart Ehrman certainly talk about this one. And it's just John versus synoptics. Which day did Jesus die? And so if you have a question in the middle of any of this, just jump in and let me know. You're okay. You can interrupt me. I can ramble. But anyways, they'll talk about like what day did Jesus die? And so the alleged contradiction is that the synoptics have Jesus die on Passover, while John has Jesus die before Passover when the lambs are being slaughtered. And the usual claim is that, this is some heavy redaction. John is like, ooh, symbolism, lambs being slaughtered. Yeah, let me move the date, and all this other stuff. So this proves that John is a fudger, right? He's willing to fudge things and make things up for theological reasons. And so because the synoptics, they just have a different day. So anyways, so John 9:14, it says that it doesn't say that it was Passover, or right? It says it was a day of preparation of the Passover. This does not have to mean the day before Passover. Preparation can mean Friday, the day before the Sabbath, right? And that Mark actually uses the same kind of language, that when the evening had come, since it was the day of preparation, that is the day before the Sabbath. And so Mark actually uses the exact same language. And John himself explains it in this way, that on John 19:31, it says, since it was the day of preparation, and so that the bodies would not remain on the cross on the Sabbath, for the Sabbath was a high day, the Jews asked Pilate that their legs might be broken and that they might be taken away. And so, that seems to explain that it's the same day to me. It also says that Jesus was buried nearby because it was a Jewish day of preparation. And it was before the Sabbath. So John agrees with Mark. Jesus died the day before the Sabbath, Friday. And when John tells us that the Sabbath was a high day, the point is that the Sabbath fell during the Feast of Unleavened Bread, making it especially solemn. Now, this is where I've even seen like even goobers like Orthodox Muslim. Sorry, I probably shouldn't call him a goober. He is a goober, though. When you threaten to rape people for leaving Islam, you're a goober. But anyways,
he did that?
Yeah, well, yes, he did. There's clips. There was a Muslimah who had doubts, and he said in Arabic, I'm going to do this. And she's like, wow, I can't believe you said that to me. And people have translated it, and it's awful. But anyways, we won't speak of that any further. So his pushback is, well, John 18:28 says that they led Jesus from the house of Caiaphas, the governor's headquarters. It was early morning, and they themselves did not enter the governor's headquarters so they would not be defiled, but that they could eat Passover. So this says the Jewish leaders wouldn't enter Pilate's headquarters because they didn't want to be defiled so they could eat Passover. And so critics say that, well, the Passover meal must not have happened yet. So it couldn't be, right? But that creates a problem. If they were worried about the evening seder, their defilement would expire at sundown after washing. So actually entering Pilate's residence that morning wouldn't prevent them from eating the seder that night. Therefore, eat the Passover likely refers to another Passover meal. It's just another Passover meal. And Passover probably refers to the whole Feast of Unleavened Bread, not just the seder. That's the way Josephus certainly refers to the Passover. It says right here, the Feast of the Unleavened Bread was celebrated, which we call Passover. And he talks about it being like basically like this entire week, right? Numbers 28:18 through 23 describes offerings on the first day of unleavened bread. This includes a food offering in addition to a regular morning offering. This supports the existence of a daytime festival meal, which is often identified with the Chagiga or Hagiga. I could be saying that wrong. And so basically, John 18:28 can mean that the leaders wanted to remain clean for the festival meals during the Passover, likely the Hagiga, not the seder. Not that the seder had not yet occurred. Okay. And there's more objections kind of to this, but not really. That's the main one, though. That's definitely the one that Orthodox Muslim made in his little video a long time ago. And so that's like a common one that you'll hear, and they'll throw that John 18:28, and it'd be like, well, it can't be that meal. And it's like, well, that's because there's more than one meal during Passover, guys. And so like understand, which was weird that Useful Charts threw that out there because like he's Jewish. dude, you should know this. Like, so
Yeah.
anyways, so those are a couple of the ones that, like, that one takes a little understanding of like what is involved with the Jewish feast and all that other stuff. But anyways, so yeah, those would be a couple that I think are kind of the more sort of trickier ones. But there you go.
Yeah. Cool. Because I always hear like, okay, let's just say, oh, there's no contradictions in the gospel. And I'll admit that a lot of the contradictions, I'm talking like the majority of the ones brought up, I mean, guys, just read the next verse. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. If you use just a little bit more critical thinking, you would have seen that there's nothing wrong there. But at the same time, there's other ones that are trickier than others, and some that are a lot harder to defend than others. So I was interested in what the hardest one or what harder ones are.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah. If you go to let me see, friend Jonathan McClatchy's blog, he's not an inerrantist, but obviously he thinks that need to learn to spell inerrancy. He goes through some. Let's try it again. Why is this like a hard word for me to spell? He goes through some contradictions that he thinks like are explained by good faith mistakes. Or he says, or at least are candidates for a possible error in scripture. Like, I think he takes the temple cleansing and like the timing of the cursing of the fig tree, because Mark implies that the temple cleansing happened after the cursing of the fig tree, whereas Matthew implies that the cursing of the fig tree occurred the day following the temple cleansing. And while sometimes like ancient historians, they did narrate things achronologically without chronological precision, he would say that like there's no reason to believe that they considered it acceptable to narrate the historical events like dyschronologically, that is, including temporal markers that actually misrepresent or mislead concerning the chronology of the events. Now, some people would just be like, well, big deal. Like, what's the problem? And so, but yeah, that's one that he kind of gives an example of, is like, you know, like he feels like that can't be harmonized for whatever reason. I think Matthew just tends to telescope and summarize. He does. I mean, I guess it's changing the facts a little bit, but to me, it's not like a major hang up. I think both of us are going to agree, like, this does not disqualify the Gospels as being historically reliable at all. So, but that's just like a simple example, I guess. I'll drop the article in the chat just for people who want to read it. And he has a section on there. Just search up strong candidates for errors in Scripture.
And why do you think so many, like, I feel like you see a lot of very prominent skeptics, and like with Alex O'Connor, Bart Ehrman, a lot of them. And why do you see them making, to an extent, kindergarten mistakes with some of this stuff? I mean, again, just read the next verse, you know, and you would see that there's nothing wrong here.
I can't psychologize people. I don't really know why they're doing that. I just can point out that they're doing it. With Bart, I mean, most I'll psychologize is like, when you're trying to build a stronger case, you're going to multiply examples, right? If he, and he, I think this is just, I guess I said I'm not going to psychologize, and now I'm sort of doing it. In order to make your case strong, you have to like build up a bunch of examples. And I think he maybe knows, like, deep down, like the strong candidates don't really knock the overall historical reliability of the message. And so I got to come up with a bunch more to make this look bad, you know? And so, I mean, that would be my only guess. It's just, it's a way to have, especially you'll notice this with Bart Ehrman in debates, and Alex too. They'll shotgun a bunch of stuff so that you're just chasing down all these rabbits, you know, and going down these different trails. And it's like, it's powerful rhetorically, but I think it does hurt them. I've even had a Matthew Hartkey who is kind of semi well known on Twitter, and he did have a pretty good skeptical YouTube channel going for a while. We had a conversation on a mutual friend of ours channel about like undesigned coincidences. It was just like I don't want to say a debate, just like a friendly back and forth. And he admitted that a lot of Barth's contradictions are just completely contrived, and most of them aren't very good. He does believe that there are a handful of strong contradictions in the Gospels, but he's like, a lot of Barth's examples are just terrible. I also think another reason for this, though, is just like people are trained a certain way, and like, so when like somebody like Dan McClellan is just kind of pounding the table and going, scholarly consensus. I guess I pounded my own table there. Sorry, everybody. And he's just like, scholarly consensus. I'm like, I don't really care about your scholarly consensus, because I know that your field as a whole is just plagued with all kinds of bad pathologies regarding like just crap epistemology in the way that you guys approach these texts, that philosophers look at. I've heard of several philosophers who just look at the discipline of New Testament historical criticism and they're like, what are you guys doing? Like, is some of these things, these mistakes that you guys are making are so basic, like all these ways that you cherry pick in order to establish developments, and you constantly are employing the argument from silence and different things like that. And so I think it's like just a field that's rife with crappy thinking, and I think they all need to take like basic philosophy classes before they should ever be allowed to enter their discipline as a prerequisite. So,
and what do you mean by that? Do you mean like his degree, that kind of field of study? What do you exactly?
Oh man, well, I mean, there's so many different examples of this. Let me pull up some egregious ones.
Because I know Dan McClellan. He's Dan McClellan.
Well, he's a guy. And so, let me pull up an example. So this is a paper that Dale Allison wrote, Psalm 23 in Early Christianity. I'm just going to summarize something that he says here. He notes that in Mark chapter 6, in the story of the feeding of the 5,000, the people are described as being like sheep without a shepherd. Jesus tells the people to sit down on the green grass, that the people should eat and be satisfied. That's what happens. And that there's water, the Sea of Galilee is nearby. And so therefore, he concludes that Mark basically invented the detail about the green grass because he was riffing off of Psalm 23, right? This is Dale Allison, right? But this is just what my friend Tim McGrew, who is a philosopher, calls hermeneutical pareidolia, right? If Mark had said that the grass was brown, somebody could easily tie it to like Isaiah 48, where it says that the grass withers and the flowers fade, but the word of the Lord, it endures forever, right? Or if Mark had said that the ground was bare and rocky, someone could note the parallel to like the parable of the soils, the sower sowing the seed, where Jesus's words are seeds, but the ground is stony. And so the whole realization that anybody can play this game with almost anything is a key to understanding that at best, this is just like goofing around. It's scholarly goofing around. It's scholarly. I'm not going to use the term, but just fill in the blank. It's scholarly, so it doesn't tell us anything about the text. Okay. And so it's a violation of kind of like Occam's razor, really. It's just goofy. And so like, what if like the grass is green because the grass is green, like Peter was a witness and they could know about it. And so that's like an example of a bad habit. Scholars will consistently say goofy stuff like this to say that like the gospel writers are fictionalizing, but like these arguments are bad. They're just not strong, right? Another example is like cherry picking to find developments. And so let's use Alex as a foil here. Let me go to, just let me know if you got to go at any point.
No, I'm good.
Like I said, I can ramble. Where's the burial here? Do John chapter.
Here to learn.
Yeah. So burial. Yes. All right. No, that's not it either. There we go. All right. So Alex, and I just saw this in his debate with Trent Horn. I finally sat down and watched it. He talks about that there's this development in the way that Jesus is buried. Like the burial story gets all these added apologetical motifs added to it to make it look stronger and stronger, and it develops over time, right? And so Mark, he says Jesus is placed in a tomb. Matthew, it becomes Joseph's of Arimathea's own tomb. And then Luke, it becomes a tomb where nobody has been laid. And then John adds that it's a garden setting that's nearby, right? And there's a large amount of burial spices. And so he says that this creates some kind of progressive embellishment. But like, is that really what's happening here? Do the details really develop smoothly? Because if the gospel writers were building an polished legend, we would expect later writers to preserve and amplify the best apologetic details, but they don't. Mark alone says that Pilate was surprised that Jesus was already dead, and he confirmed with the centurion before he released the body to Joseph of Arimathea. That's in Mark 15:44 through 45. Pilate was surprised to hear that he would have already died, and summoning a centurion, he asked him if he was already dead. And when he learned from the centurion that he was dead, he granted the corpse to Joseph, right? So that's actually apologetically, if we're saying that they're adding more and more apologetic motifs, that's a strong death confirmation detail, like no swoon theory, right? And so now John does have the whole spear go through his side to confirm that he's dead. But Matthew and Luke omit it, and John omits Pilate's surprise or him even asking the centurion to check. But he just gives a different confirmation that the soldier saw that Jesus was already dead. They didn't break his legs. You know, they did the whole spear thing in John 19:33 through 34. And so Mark gives the official confirmation request. John gives the physical confirmation, but neither looks like this is like simply copying or upgrading each other. And then as far as like Joseph of Arimathea, it talks about that Joseph, it took courage. He was a respected member of the council. This is Mark's gospel. A respected member of the council who himself was looking for the kingdom of God, took courage and went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Okay, so Mark doesn't explain why courage was needed. John 19:38 says, after these things, Joseph of Arimathea, who was a disciple of Jesus, but secretly for fear of the Jews, asked Pilate that he might take away the body of Jesus, and Pilate gave him permission, so he came and took away his body. So, well, wait a second. Secretly for fear of the Jews, and the other one says like Joseph took courage. So yeah. John doesn't praise Joseph's bravery at all. And in fact, it's like the detail in John is less than flattering. And so if this is, again, cherry picked, like if this is a development hypothesis and the details are getting more grand and grand as they go on, in Mark's gospel, Joseph is a bold guy. And John is like, no, he's a secret disciple for fear of the Jews. And if you remember anything about John's gospel, he does not speak highly of people who are secret disciples. He says, nevertheless, many of even the authorities believed in him, but for fear of the Pharisees, they did not confess it, that they be put out of the synagogue, for they love the glory that comes from man more than the glory that comes from God. I mean, ouch. Okay. I mean, he's not praising Joseph there. So he's not upgrading Mark's Joseph. He just gives a different angle and explains Mark's wording that actually fit together really cohesively from a like, that's kind of like an undesigned coincidence.
I would say
yeah, for sure, definitely. It's one,
and it could also show like authorship differences, as in one sees this act as cowardly, the other sees the act as heroic.
Yeah, precisely. Yep. And then we see like Mark names the women who saw Jesus where he was laid. Like that's kind of an important detail, where Luke says that the women saw the tomb, but it doesn't actually like does not name them there. Mark actually like names the women who saw the tomb. And then John omits the women at the burial scene completely, right? And then Matthew says that the tomb was Joseph's own tomb, but Mark drops the note that Joseph was a respected member of the council. So he drops Mark's note, is what I'm trying to say. He doesn't say anything about Joseph being a respected member of the council. Well, it's like, I feel like that would apologetically be more helpful. Here you have this like kind of like attestation of somebody on the Sanhedrin who's a respected member who believes, and Matthew's like, you know what? I'm dropping Mark's detail about that. And then John adds Nicodemus and the spices, but he doesn't say that the tomb even belonged to Joseph or that it was cut from a rock. And so, like, if these are all supposed to be legendary upgrades, why aren't they like cleaner? They're selective, they're uneven, they have independent emphases. And so I don't think the burial accounts are showing legendary development at all. I think O'Connor's example is completely cherry-picked and gerrymandered. They just show independent reporting with partial overlaps, omissions, and interlocking details, which is exactly what you would expect on eyewitness testimony. If they were inventing a polished apologetic myth, they did a pretty terrible job. They could have stacked together their strongest evidence, and we would expect it to get bigger and better. And that's not what we see. And so it's just like, but Bart Ehrman, I mean, Alex, he's not a New Testament scholar, he's borrowing a lot of this stuff from what he's getting from scholars. And Bart Ehrman is a master at cherry picking legendary development theories. And so, anyways, yeah, I hope that helps.
Yeah, that helps.
Okay,
cool.
Well, I do got a couple more waiting in the queue.
We've been talking for like what, 20 minutes, I think.
Oh yeah, I guess so. Time flies when you're having fun, right?
Yeah, it does. So, I'll see you around. Testify. You take care. Thank you so much. God bless.
Yeah, no problem. All right, good questions. All right, we'll bring up Chad Mamma Jamma. The Giga Chad. Yes, sir.
So this is weird. For some reason, I can't hear you. Can I rejoin real quick?
Yeah, just close out and rejoin. All right, he'll do that. We'll give him a second. There's somebody waiting. We'll not wait. We'll let him jump in. You tip top mirror. You're on stage, bro.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, good.
I was wondering, do you know any good books on textual variation and stuff? I've been looking into that a bit more recently.
Yeah. I'm not into. This isn't my my main field or level area of interest. But there is I'm just pulling up my phone here. Myths and Mistakes in New Testament textual criticism. Ooh, that's a big dog you got there.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay. Myths and Mistakes in New Testament Textual Criticism. It's by Peter Gurry and Elijah Hickson. That would be a good one.
All right, yeah. I've been looking into that because I've been talking to some Muslims and they keep bringing up the longing of Mark, that verse in 1 John. I've been doing a little bit of that.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to argue that those are authentic, you can pick up a book. Just look up James Snap's Amazon author profile. He actually argues that those are authentic to the original text, and he has some interesting arguments. His books are only like a buck a piece. He is a New Testament scholar, and so if you're interested in at least hearing the case for those being authentic, that's fine. But the thing is, when you're talking to Muslims about this kind of an issue, they think that basically the Quran was dictated word for word, letter for letter, dot for dot. And so, which is funny because even their own hadiths say that Muhammad forgot part of the Quran, that part of the Quran was eaten by a tame sheep. Aisha narrates these things. And so the mother of the faithful says that that the Quran verse is about adult breastfeeding. We're eaten by a sheep, which, first of all, why is there adult breastfeeding? Second of all, why are the sheep being able to so easily eat the Quran? What's going on, guys? Your religion makes me laugh. But anyways, yeah. So, and then of course, see the latest video by my friend Than on there's a whole dilemma with the perfect preservation. They're trying to compare. They're trying to import their theology onto ours, where again we don't think that the text has to be word for word, letter for letter, dot for dot, dictated basically. And second of all, they have problems with their own book. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I'm just. What would you say, if a Muslim I can show that the Bible isn't corrupted, but they would much rather prefer to believe the Quran over the lack of evidence.
Over the lack of it, I mean,
I can show those differences aren't showing corruption and stuff, but they refuse to believe it you know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. At that point, you're just going to have to attack Islam itself. First of all, I mean, they're making a self-refuting argument because their book affirms our book over and over and over, like a beating drum. And so I'm sure you've heard of the whole Islamic dilemma, unless you're living under a rock. And so, I mean, even if they just say, well, that just says gospel and Torah, so what? That's fine. And so if their book is confirming our book, then our book must be preserved, right? And so, and if it's calling our book God's words, and the Quran says that the words of God, you know, can't be corrupted, different things like that. And so it's like, well, too bad. Oop. I guess the dog was going a little too wild there. All right, we'll move on to the next. If he comes back, that's fine. That was a big. Oh, yeah. Well.
Oh,
hey,
sorry about that. Accidentally fix it.
Oh, okay. No worries. And so, I mean, yeah, at that point, I just run the Islamic dilemma and be like, well, sorry, your book affirms our book, so deal with that, buckaroo.
Yeah. I've tried that, and they you know, your video about what's the Injil, all like 8 options they can't do. Yeah. They're wanting to go for the scriptures that we have are not the same stuff. Want to run that? They like partially. Say, oh, it's gone. Like it's all gone. We don't have it anymore. Even though, and
then they fall on they've takfired themselves at that point, because it says that it's with the Jews and the Christians, right? It's just too bad. Like the verses that I give in that video say that the scriptures are with the Jews and the Christians. It says that we recite them. It says that we have them. And so then they're unbelievers. Just say, congratulations, you're an apostate now. That's what you say. Like, you just contradicted your own Quran, so that's just too bad. Like, so yeah, like they don't really have an option. That the video literally covers other options. If they're just biting the bullet and saying, yeah, it's completely gone, then okay, you are an apostate now. Congratulations, you played yourself.
Yeah. Well, thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah. What was that book again?
Yeah, it was Myths and Mistakes in New Testament Textual Criticism.
All right. Well, thank you.
Peter Gurry. Yep. All right.
Yep.
Take care.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Yep. Gonna cough here. Excuse me. All right. Bring Chad back. All right, Giga Chad, you're up.
Oh, hey, good day. Hi. So, I was just wondering how I don't know if you answered this question earlier, because I not too long joined the live stream, but it's with Paul. Paul's in Acts 9 and like Acts 22. Like, how would you go about defending that? If you know what I'm talking about, like when he got
like it's an apparent contradiction, like the details vary. Yeah. No, that's a good question. I appreciate that. Oh, it's a good one. Yeah, let me find it here. All right, so Acts 9:7, we'll just read the verse. It's always important to read the verse, right? And it says, well, we'll back up one verse. It says, well, we'll back up 2 verses. Yeah, we'll back up all the way to verse 3. It says, now as they went on their way, he approached Damascus, and suddenly a light from heaven shone around him. And falling to the ground, he heard a voice saying to him, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? And he said, who are you, Lord? And he said, I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. Arise, enter the city, and you will be told what you are to do. The men traveling with him stood speechless, hearing the voice, but seeing no one. Okay, so, I got the wrong one. Here we go. And then Acts 22, it says, we'll back up again. And as I was on my way, he's talking to the Jews. And he says, and I was on my way, and I drew near Damascus, and at noon, a great light from heaven suddenly shone around me. And I fell to the ground and heard a voice saying, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? And I answered, who are you, Lord? And he said, I'm Jesus of Nazareth, who you're persecuting. And those who were with me saw the light, but did not understand the voice who was speaking to me. And I said, what shall I do, Lord? And the Lord said to me, rise, go to Damascus, and so forth. And so Acts 9:7, here's the apparent contradiction. It says that Paul's companions heard the voice, but they saw no one. Where Acts 22:9 says that they saw the light, But they didn't understand, or they didn't hear. Some translations say they didn't hear the voice of one speaking to them. And so Acts 9 says they heard the voice, where Acts 22 says they didn't. Well, even in this translation here that I'm looking at, this is the ESV, it says, let me see, but they did not understand the voice, right? And so the Greek word there is akuo, which it can mean hear, like they didn't hear, but it also refers to hearing, like hear with like the understanding, right? So an example of that would be, there's a similar word, it's got the same root word in it, where it says, Jesus says, I say to those who hear, right? But it means, he's not saying like, do you hear? Is this bouncing off, your eardrums and you're physically hearing it, but do you understand, right? And so in Acts 9:7, Paul's companions hear the sound of the voice. In Acts 22:9, they do not understand the message, likely because maybe Jesus was speaking, could have been speaking in Aramaic, maybe he had Greek companions with him. I don't know. But this is just like saying, I heard you talking, but I couldn't hear what you said. It's not a contradiction at all. It'd be kind of weird if Paul contradict himself, and at best this makes Luke sloppy, and he just gives some variation, but it's not a contradiction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, and that's what I was saying, because I was like going through it earlier there. I was like, okay, this, because I've thought about it before, and I was like, so this might be what people may think is a contradiction, but if you look at it, it doesn't say that they didn't see a light in Acts 9, and it didn't say that they understood in Acts 9 what was being said anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I think this is why a lot of modern translations do just translate it as they did not understand. So this is an example that like Bart Ehrman does use. But yeah, I don't think it's a very strong contradiction at all. There is another supposed contradiction in these stories where it says that Paul's companions stood speechless. And this is something Bart will raise. But then in Acts 26:14, when he's talking to Agrippa, it says, when we had fallen to the ground. So it's like, it reminds me of like the VeggieTales clip where he's like, this is sitting, this is standing, I'm standing, and it's like, which, what's going on here? Are they standing or are they sitting? Right. This is supposed to be a contradiction. Bart Ehrman certainly mentions this as a contradiction in his blog when he's talking about the book of Acts. And he says this is just proof that Acts is not written by a careful historian, but somebody who's just trying to craft a cool theological story, right? But I think the phrase stood speechless is just probably idiomatic. That means something like they were frozen in their tracks, like something that we would say something like that, right? It just means that they were stopped. They were stunned. It doesn't necessarily mean that they remained upright the entire time, right? Acts 26:14 just gives us the fuller physical detail. They all fell to the ground. And so even J.B. Lightfoot, a New Testament scholar, takes Acts 9:7 as describing that they were stunned and arrested at the moment. And he kind of gets into all the Greek. I won't get into that because that's beyond my my pay grade there. But he says if you look at the Greek, it just kind of means that they were stunned and arrested at the moment. Whereas Acts 26:14 just describes the later after physical effect. And so it's a weaker example from the same story that Bart tries to kind of stack together as more proof that Luke is a doofus.
Oh. Yeah, well, yeah, that's the Acts 9 and 22. That's basically what I wanted to bring, because I saw that you were going live.
Yeah.
I was like,
no, it's a great question.
Let me just see if Testify is live, see if I could bring it up. And I was like, oh yeah, he is live. Cool.
Yeah.
So, but enjoy the rest of your day, man. God bless.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks. That's what I'm here for. Appreciate you coming up. All right. Good question. That is when you hear occasionally. It's not like a super common one, but it definitely is something that does come up. So good stuff. Very good stuff. I don't think we have anybody joining at the moment. I could run some clips of some stuff. So let me make a quick note. I like to make notes if I see something missing in my notes after having a caller. So bear with me. Okay, what am I doing there? Turn into Bugs Bunny. All right, we'll look at the chat real quick, I guess. Put your dog on the cam. I know that sounded like a big dog. Testify is so hot. Thank you. I don't know. Do I have a Discord server? No, probably because I just 420. Probably because I just wouldn't keep up with it. I would be terrible. I would be very neglectful, and that would be bad. Anyways, so yeah, that's why I don't do that. I should. If you join my Patreon, oh my goodness, he's gonna plug his Patreon. Yeah, I guess I could do that real quick. If you join my Patreon, I neglect my group chat in there, but you can ask me questions there, or shoot, my goodness, you could join these live streams and ask me questions. But no, I don't have a Discord. I know Discord is good because you can just ask something and throw it in the chat, and then eventually it gets seen and responded to. I had a Discord group at one point, but I was just really bad at the upkeep of it, and so I got rid of it. Maybe someday, if someone's willing to moderate it, somebody who I actually trust, somebody that I actually trust, I will do that, but not now. But I do have a chat where sometimes I respond. Again, I'm not the best. I need to work on it. I don't always get notifications on my phone when somebody says anything to me on Patreon, but I might as well take 2 seconds to plug this. I don't do it very often. But yeah, join the Patreon. Patreon, it is cheap. It is affordable. It helps me to continue to go. I do this part-time. I do also work part-time. But it does help support me and continuing to be able to do things like this, especially when, hey, I'm kind of doing a little bit of a transition here, and not everybody jumps on board with the transition. I'm still trying to like put out shorts and regular videos, but I do want to do more of this kind of content. Maybe I'll clip certain things where I give answers and different things like that. It just feels like what I'm supposed to do. It seems good. So anyways, yeah, if you want to join. If you don't, that's okay. Don't. There's no pressure. So, all right. Q-Tip, what's up, brother?
Oh, not much. How are you doing today?
I'm good.
All right. So I just had a really, I wouldn't say strange question, but it's a fair and legitimate question. It's about Matthew 21:33 through 40. Hold on. 40.
The Parable of the Tenants?
Yes, that
Okay.
one.
Okay.
Okay. Is it like, does it debunk the whole Jews are God's chosen people thing? Because my interpretation of it is that Jesus basically told the Pharisees and the Jews outright, you're kicked out.
Yeah, no, I understand. This is kind of more of a theological interpretation than regarding New Testament reliability. But when it says that I tell you the kingdom of God will be taken from you and given to a people producing its fruits, it's really funny because I have seen multiple Muslims try to say this is a prophecy of Jesus about the Muslims, which is really funny because it's like, hey, wait a second, this is the parable of the vineyard. Surely they will respect my son. This is the heir. Let's kill him. Okay, yeah, that fits really good with Islam, guys. Way to go, you guys are once again idiots. Anyways, but
I'd say room to IQ.
Yeah, definitely. And so it's bad. It's bad. I'm being too harsh. I should be nicer. But anyways, they make it hard. But I've taken the interpretation kind of that you would. I think he's saying, you scribes, you Pharisees, you people who are interpreting the law, it's being taken away from you and it's being given to I mean, sure, it could include the Gentiles, but I also think he's saying that it's being taken to those who act like they have the kind of keys of the kingdom, and they're saying that you have to keep all these rules and regulations, as he says elsewhere in 23, but then they don't even go themselves, and so he's saying you're not going to be the teachers of the kingdom of God anymore. It's being taken from you, and it's going to be given to people producing its fruits, namely the apostles and their people that the church, right? And so I think it is a replacement of the church, which would of course include Gentiles. But no, I don't buy necessarily like replacement theology, and some people might be upset, but I'm not like a big time I don't know, like heavy super hyper dispensationalist either with stuff. And so But I don't think this is a good text to say the church has completely 100% replaced Israel and God has nothing to do with Israel whatsoever anymore. I don't think that's a good proof text for that.
All right, that's all I wanted to really know.
Yeah, no worries. No, that's a fair question. I appreciate it.
Yeah, now I got I got a bunch of house chores I need to get done. So you have a wonderful day and you keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, you too, man. Or well,
right.
you too. Yeah, whatever you do those house chores. Yeah, I'm sorry.
All right.
Appreciate it. Yep. I pulled the I'll probably do this when Mother's Day comes up this Sunday. Somebody's gonna go, Happy Mother's Day, you too. Or no, I'm gonna say Happy Mother's Day. No, that's Father's Day that I screw that one up. Yeah. Let me get my facts straight here. Oh my goodness, Bush League. We'll look at some super chats real quick. Are you Orthodox? Like Eastern Orth? Am I Orthodox? I believe that the Trinity and in the incarnation, and I believe in Scripture. Does that make me Orthodox? I don't think that's what he's asking. He's probably asking my Eastern Orthodox. No, I'm not. I don't have any problem telling people I am capital P Pentecostal, not United Pentecostal. And so yeah, maybe one day I'll talk about why I believe what I believe. I'm way more focused on general, this kind of stuff, historical reliability, than getting into the theology and stuff. But no, I'm not Eastern Orthodox. Let's see. Would you consider doing a Eucharistic dilemma video? Quran chapter 5, the table seems to be a reference to the Last Supper, but makes no sense if you reject Jesus' atonement or crucifixion. Some people think, a minority opinion. I agree. That is interesting. I think that would make an interesting video, Kevin, and thank you for the super chat. Thank you also, Zach, for the super chat. I've thought about that. I've considered that. So no, that's cool. Some people think it could also be an allusion to the feeding of the 5,000. And so most people do think it is referring to the Lord's Supper. It absolutely makes no sense if you reject Jesus' atonement and crucifixion. I totally agree with you. The problem is like it's such a vague thing. But even if you do take it on the view that it is maybe the feeding of the 5,000, well, like, whoa, there's all this historical evidence for the feeding of the 5,000. And so if it is kind of like a vague allusion to it, like the Quran makes an allusion to something that like it knows absolutely nothing about, like it always does. Whereas the Gospels have like so many details regarding the historical account of the feeding of the 5,000. But if it is something about where they reject Jesus' atonement and crucifixion, then you could also bring the fact that like there's undesigned coincidences and cool things regarding even that with him predicting his crucifixion and death and different things like that, as well as talking about the cup of the suffering and different things. And so yeah, good idea, Kevin. I appreciate the super chat. Maybe I will. Please make a video. Did Jesus know the hour? I'll tell you what, hang tight. Maybe if we have time, I'll go into my thoughts on that. And so, yes, I should make a video on that because I think I take more of a partial preterist approach to that, similar to like R.T. France, R.C. Sproul. What's the other guy's name that I'm all of a sudden? Kenneth Gentry. They all have commentaries or books on the topic. And so I do think it's something that should be out there because it is one of the common objections you hear. So I should do that. We'll bring the next guest up real quick. King James, King Jimmy. What's going on, bro?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Hey, I had a question for you about, well, I had a few questions, but the one I guess I want to start with is, how would you reconcile the apparent contradiction where, Paul in 1 Corinthians is teaching that it's okay to eat meat sacrificed to idols when, pretty much everyone else, Moses, Jesus, even the council in Acts 15, say not to do it.
Yeah. Curious Philosophy, I think that's the name of the YouTube channel, actually made a real banger of a video in response to Orthodox Muslim, because this is something that Orthodox Muslim was talking about with Muhammad Ajab on whatever the heck that video of them together was. It's like a laughing who can be more evil best. But anyways, no, that's a good question. And so I would definitely recommend people to his video. I even shared it on my community tab. But I'll give you the quick version. And so, does Paul contradict Acts 15 on food sacrificed to idols? And so, yeah, it does seem that Acts 15 forbids Gentiles from eating food offered to idols, but supposedly Paul allows it in Romans 8 through 10, and it's kind of maybe in Romans 14. And so basically what Orthodox Muslim says is if Paul is true, he contradicts the apostles. If Paul is false, Christianity is false because Christians follow Paul. So checkmate Christians, got him. But anyways, it says, it does say, we'll look at the verses, Acts 15:19 through 20. Therefore, my judgment is that we should not trouble those of the Gentiles who turn to God, but should write to them to abstain from things polluted by idols. Okay. And then it's basically the same thing as repeated in verses 28 through 29. And so it says that the Gentiles are not required to keep the whole Mosaic law, but they must abstain from idolatrous pollution, sexual morality, blood, strangled things. The concern, though, I don't think is not random meat with unknown history. The concern is separation from idolatry and scandalous pagan practices. And Paul 100% agrees with that. He says, therefore, as to the eating of food offered to idols, we know that an idol has no real existence. There's only God but one. But in 8:7 through 13, he says, however, not all possess this knowledge, but some, through former association with idols, eat food is really offered to an idol, and their conscience being weak is defiled. Food will not commend us to God. We are no worse off if we do not eat. We are no better off if we do. But take care that this is the right of yours, or this right of yours doesn't somehow become a stumbling block to the weak. For if anyone sees you who have knowledge eating in an idol's temple, will he not be encouraged if his conscience is weak to eat food offered to idols? And so by your knowledge, this weak person is destroyed, the brother for whom Christ died. Thus sinning against your brothers and wounding the conscience when it is weak, you sin against Christ. Therefore, if food makes my brother stumble, I will never eat meat, lest I make my brother stumble. And so he says, don't use your knowledge in a way that wounds weaker believers' conscience. But then in verse 10 and 14, he says, flee from idolatry. And then he even talks about the pagan sacrifice. No, I imply that what pagan sacrifice they offer to demons and not to God. I do not want you to be participants with demons. You cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of demons. You cannot partake of the table of the Lord and the table of demons. Shall we provoke the Lord to jealousy? Are we stronger than we? And so Paul actually clearly forbids participation in idol worship and the food that would have been offered to idols, right? And so what Paul permits is a different case. He says in verse 25 in chapter 10, whatever is sold, eat whatever is sold in the meat market without raising questions on the ground of conscience. For the earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof. This is ordinary food. It's not regarded like temple worship, but it's like, okay, we it has some unknown history, right? But if an unbeliever, he says, serves it to you, he invites you to dinner and you're disposed to go, he says, go ahead and eat whatever is set before you without raising any question on the ground of conscience, right? He says, but if someone says to you, this has been offered and sacrificed to idols, he says, don't eat it for the sake of the one informed you, for the sake of conscience, right? And so he says, if this has been sacrificed to idols, don't eat it. So once the idol connection is actually public, eating could imply approval and it would cause scandal. And so Acts 15 forbids Gentile Christians from idolatrous pollution. Paul actually forbids the exact same thing. He only allows ordinary marketplace private meal situations where no idolatrous participation or scandal is actually involved. But if they do know it, then he's like, no, that's bad. You're partaking of the table of demons. Don't do that. So Libiano and whoever else is making this argument, like they're not carefully reading 1 Corinthians 8 through 10. And they're just assuming like what 15 is talking about it's not talking about just all random meat with an unknown history. This could be sacrificed to idols. So just err on the side of caution. Don't eat it. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. That's kind of, I guess, what I was thinking myself. And so would you say that Paul is saying that essentially meat that's sold in the marketplace in Corinth, which there's really no way to know how it got there, right? Like you don't know if it was that it's okay to eat that because you're not participating in the ceremony or whatever.
Yeah, he's saying if you're at a guest house and they're like, oh, by the way, we sacrifice this to Zeus, he's gonna meet, and then he agrees 100%, right, with that, right? If like
so if you know it's been sacrificed to Zeus, then he's saying don't eat it, right?
Yeah, he's basically saying idols aren't a real thing, right? But when somebody has sacrificed this to a god, they're sacrificing it to a demon. And if you participate in it, you eat it, you're participating in it. And he's like, I don't want you to do that. You can't sit at the Lord's table on Sunday and then, be sitting at the table of demons the rest of the week, right? And so it's a matter of what you know. But he is talking about people with like a weak conscience who are like, they might be from a Jewish background and they're surrounded by people in Corinth that are just, they go to the market and they're like, is any of this safe? I don't know. Like, because there's no kosher market here and they won't go there, right? Maybe they'll only go to other Jews to buy their meat or something like that. He's saying for those people, if it's going to offend them that you're eating meat, because they're like, you don't know if that's been sacrificed to an idol or not. He's like, don't do that in front of them.
Gotcha.
Because that's going to cause them to stumble, right? And so, or if you're eating in a place where it's like, you bought this meat and it's in like, you're out and about in public, and there's other Corinthians around, and you're eating it and they are like, uh-oh, that doesn't look good. Then even though like your conscience is like, it's fine, whatever, what's the big deal? But they see that and they're like, oh, maybe so-and-so's doing it, so I guess that's okay. He's saying don't, for the sake of their conscience, okay?
Right.
Which is a different thing. So
Paul's saying if you don't know, then it's okay. But if somebody who is thinking, well, maybe it was sacrificed, then don't eat it for their sake.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Excuse me. Does that help?
That does help, because then that's the only way to make sense of what he says later in Corinthians when he warns everyone to flee from idolatry and this and that.
It's again, if you just read the chapter carefully, I mean, and you can't really get more explicit than you can't drink from the cup of the Lord and the cup of demons, right? And so he says what the pagans sacrifice they offer to demons, and he's like, he's basically expounding upon what James and the Jerusalem apostles gave him. And he's like, we know there's only one God. What they're sacrificing are evil spirits, and we're not going to participate in that. So that he's agreeing 100% with the Council of Jerusalem. And so there is no dilemma, right? Paul is not contradicting the apostles, and therefore the dilemma completely falls apart. Again, Kyrios philosophy, he's got a video where he goes into it in more depth. And so definitely check out a smaller channel, but just go to my community tab. He deserves more subs. So if anybody's listening, if he's listening,
what's the name of it again?
It's Kyrios, like Kyrie, like Kyrios philosophy. I think he's the one that helps bear the image. I don't know if you've seen his channel. He debates a lot of Muslims in the morning. I think he helps with his edits and different things like that. I could be mistaken about that, but he's got some good stuff.
Okay, and this might not be a question that you would want to talk about, but it's related to the food sacrifice to idols. So then, what would be like a Christian stance on like halal meat?
Oh yeah, I don't know with the whole. I still need to look into this a little bit more. I know people like have different thoughts on. I need to go back and research this and make a note. But yeah, is that saying like you can't eat a rare steak, or something like that? And I don't necessarily think that it does, but I need to kind of form my opinion a little bit more on something like that.
No, I don't mean like a rare steak, like, but I mean like halal meat is in the sense of like it's been like slaughtered in the name of Allah, basically.
Oh yeah.
Like it's halal for Muslims to eat. Yeah.
Well, no, I don't think that'd be wrong. That'd be wrong. Like, because I don't think Allah is the true God. And so I don't think that they're going to do that, because I don't think that they do sacrifices or anything else like that. But yeah, I
Yeah, it's
wouldn't
not
do
really
it.
a sacrifice. It's just like when they slaughter the animal, they like slaughter in the name of Allah. As
If
far
they're
as
praying
I'm,
over, if they're praying over that meat before they're slaughtering it or something like that, I'm
Yeah.
probably not. I'm gonna probably err on the side of caution there and just be like, no thanks. I think I'll pass.
Gotcha.
So just
Alright.
to stick with this, even if like my brain's like whatever, it's just meat. But I probably would not. I'd probably just to stick with what Paul's talking about here. I would not do that.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem. Good question. I appreciate all these questions have been great. So yeah, thanks for coming up. All right, we'll go ahead and clear some space there. All right. Afzal, I think. Could be saying that wrong. Hello.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah.
A little faint, but I can hear you.
Is it better now?
We'll try and go with it. It's a little better. We'll try and go with it.
I was not expecting to get into the call so soon. So okay, I'm not prepared. So
do you want to come back?
No, it's fine. It's fine. I have some questions. So
okay.
So your stream is on so New Testament Q&A, right? Or is it like I can ask this? Yeah.
Well, I'm sticking with like reliability of the New Testament.
Yeah.
Adjacent at the very most.
Yeah, this is a perfect stream. Like I wanted to discuss about that. So just to give a bit of background, and I am a generic theist, you can say. I mean, I'm pretty much convinced of a perfect being theism, and I don't hold to a particular religion, and I'm considering Christianity. So yeah.
Okay.
So and also that looking for this resurrection case for resurrection. So I find maximal data case to be quite interesting. I would say not convincing yet, but quite interesting in the sense that if we can get to the gospel as really reliable testimony of the apostles, then I think we can get to the resurrection much more easily. So my doubts will be on whether the New Testament is as reliable as it is claimed to be in the resurrection case for Mac data case for resurrection. I hope I'm clear. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little general because it's like that's a big question that would take a long time to unpack. So basically, do you understand how the max data case is made?
I would say I broadly understand it. I don't know I don't remember the details right now. So I have watched David Palman's video on it, and also Inspiring Philosophies whole gospel reliability case. So I mean, I forget because there are a lot of details he put. So
yeah. Well, Paulman and I would be pretty much on the same page when it comes to arguing for the resurrection, and so basically, it's just like a simple trilemma, and so when it comes to eyewitness testimony, there are always going to be three explanations, right? Somebody's either lying about the testimony, somebody's mistaken about the eyewitness testimony, or that they're truthful, right? And so what the max data case we're going to say is that the kind of experiences of the resurrected Jesus are the kind of experiences that are impossible to be mistaken about. And so let me remember where I put this note. One second here. Let me pull up a note real quick.
Okay.
Resurrection. Thought I tagged that one. But anyways, the kind of appearances that we have in the Gospels are not the kind of things that they would be easily mistaken about. because we're talking
Right.
about like multi-sensory experiences, you know, that were extended across time.
Right.
You have like the appearance of the appearance of John, or excuse me, in John, of Thomas being invited to touch his wounds and different things like that. You have the same kind of thing in Luke's gospel where he says, "Hey, a flesh and bone, a spirit doesn't have a flesh and bone body like I do." Different things
Right.
like that, and so on and so forth. So they're multi-sensory, and then Acts 1:3 says that these appearances, there were many convincing proofs that were extended across a period of 40 days. And so those aren't the kind of things that one would be mistaken about, right? I mean, they're eating broiled fish together and different things like that. There's groups, there's all kinds of things that are going on. And so
Right.
now, as far as the content of their claim, that's the content of their claim. As far as the context of their claim, it would be very difficult to say that they're lying, because they're making this claim in the face of persecution.
Right.
And so Jesus had just been crucified. And like, that's kind of a big deal. They're making this proclamation in Jerusalem in the face of threats of beatings. They are arrested at one point. Peter and John are. Then all of the 12 are arrested and beaten. And then we see the persecution breaking out in Jerusalem, and yet the apostles still remain in Jerusalem. Stephen is martyred. And even though Stephen himself wasn't a witness to the resurrection, it would have served as a warning shot to anybody. So that's the content of the claim. It would be really difficult to say, oh, okay, well, they're definitely lying about that. And so the best explanation is Jesus rose from the dead. Now, what we're going to have to do in order to support that claim is we're going to have to say that the Gospels reflect the unembellished testimony of what the eyewitnesses actually experienced. And same with the persecution. Like, does Acts reflect the unembellished testimony of what they experienced for proclaiming this message? And we would just say that there's, like, a maximalist would say that there's a torrent of evidence that the Gospels are written by people who are extremely truthful, extremely knowledgeable, and very close up to the facts. And so what they actually record goes back to what the original eyewitnesses claimed. We don't just beg the question and say, well, the Gospels are reliable, therefore what they said has happened. No, it just goes back to what their claims are. And if that's their claims, then the best explanation is Jesus rose from the dead. And so what you have to learn at that point is just what are the supporting evidences for the high reliability of the Gospels, and to be able to kind of break those down. And those can fall into different categories, like external confirmations, places where Luke or the Gospel writers get hard things right, that shows that they were really, knowledgeable about the setting and the times and different things like that, that they're trying to get things right, that they're scrupulous reporters and different things like that. As well as like undesigned coincidences, which shows, again, the same kind of thing. And also that they're very close up to the events being reported. And so if you can have that, all of those things under your belt, then you got a strong argument for the resurrection.
Right. So that's interesting. So my question would be, so I mean, you would know this argument. I mean, this is not trying to say that I'm appealing to authority. I'm just trying to say that experts in the field, like New Testament historical critical scholars, don't view the Gospels as really reliable. So I'm not saying that therefore you should not believe it. I am just a bit reluctant, and how would you answer different critics? And I mean, I don't remember the argument, so pardon me if I can come back later also.
Again, I'm gonna have to answer in generalities because it's just the question is more general, but it's totally fine.
I can give you a specific. I can give you a particular example, and
if you want
that
to,
I am
you can.
thinking right. So
yeah, sure.
So like you know about Mark Kudeker, right? Obviously, you would know about it. So he argues for what do we say, literary dependence of the Gospels. So and source dependence of the Gospels based on this idea that like there are some what do we say, like this literary fatigue, and while Matthew is like, when he's copying, he's showing literary fatigue in the sense that when Mark is giving a lot of details, whereas while Matthew is writing. So I don't remember the particular example, so I'll have to go and look into it. But when Mark is writing in certain passages, he's giving a lot of details, whereas when Matthew is like copying him, he's like stopping it and not giving sufficient detail. It's like that's that kind of argument. So how do you deal with those kinds of arguments? Or you might not have a one unique response to one response for all of them, but do you have an idea of like what the argument is and how would you respond to it in general, like Mark Goodacre's argument?
Yeah, with the fatigue stuff.
Right.
What is it? Editorial fatigue is what he calls it. And so
Yeah. Editorial fatigue.
yeah. And so I've found that argument really incredibly weak. And so basically, for one example of this would be like Luke chapter 9. And so what Goodacre says basically is that Luke would be dependent upon Mark, but he failed to sustain their editorial activity. And so when he says that the feeding happened in a city, but then he has Jesus describe the surroundings as a desolate place. And so one minute he's saying, well, the feeding of the 5,000 happened to Bethsaida. And then like he gets kind of tired or something. And then he's like, well, it's a desolate place. Yeah. And so, however, no explanation is given really what motivated Luke to deliberately change the location found in Mark.
Right.
There's no explanation given for that at all. Also, the disciples' statement concerning the surrounding places where the people could go purchase food indicates that the desolate place was really not that far from surrounding villages or the countryside. And so, like, if you're saying, where are we going to get food? Well, desolate place still has to mean like close enough to where we can go and walk and buy food, right? And so, and I think that when Luke is talking about Bethsaida, he's using it more in a regional sense. And plus Matthew, which most scholars agree was independent of Luke, though they do share common source material. That's where people get the whole Q thing from, which Goodacre, interestingly, is against, indicates that they were also in a desolate place. And so there's independent reasons to think also that the beating of the 5,000 happened, that I could walk through and give tons of examples. But yeah, I find that particular theory not particularly compelling. And so are we really to think that like Luke really got tired and he forgot what he wrote just 2 verses earlier? Like, what? Like, I don't get it. And this is kind of the problem that I have with a lot of scholars, right? And to answer the question more general, is they come up with these, I got really close to the mic there. They come up with some of these convoluted theories that like, if you sit down and think about them, they don't make a lot of sense. And so when somebody like I mentioned this as an example, like Dan McClellan, he's constantly bullying people on TikTok and YouTube. Oh, scholarly consensus is against you dumb little apologist. And it's like scholarly consensus doesn't really mean a whole lot when your discipline like constantly makes up epistemological laughers like editorial fatigue. Where I gave some examples with the previous caller of like, and like even Dan agreed with, like when he made a video saying Wes Huff is an idiot because he talked about the feeding of the 5,000 with the undesigned coincidence about the grass being green, because Mark 6:31, he mentions that the grass was green, and he also mentions in 39 that there were many people coming and going, whereas John mentions that it was Passover time. So that explains why the grass is green. The grass in Palestine was normally brown, but during the rainy season, the spring season, which Passover would be a part of, it would be green because of the rain season, right? And that would also explain the crowds and the many, all the coming and going. And one of the things that Dan said was, no, scholars say, this is the scholarly consensus. I'm kind of mocking Dan a little bit here, so bear with me. But he said, the green grass is just, according to Dale Allison, and scholars agree with him, that he's talking about Psalm 23 because, they're by a body of water and the grass, he makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. And like the sheep are being fed and all this other stuff. And so he's just clearly riffing on that. And it's like, well, that's so bogus, right? If Mark said the grass was brown, as I said with previous caller, somebody could just say, oh, that's Isaiah chapter 40, with the grass withers and the flowers fade, but the word of the Lord endures forever, right? And so the whole idea that anybody can kind of play this game, just coming up with symbolism and saying this is from the Old Testament, it's just a goofy game that scholars play, but they're treating this as like real scholarship, right? And so that's just like one example. Editorial fatigue is another example. Making arguments from silence all the time. You have Paul Fredrickson saying that the stoning of Stephen is completely invented, because if it really happened, Paul surely would have mentioned it in his letters. I've heard her say that.
That's a bad argument, yeah.
That's a terrible argument from silence. But you constantly hear arguments from silence from scholars. And so it's like the fact that your discipline is plagued with all kinds of like bad arguments.
Right.
It just tells me that like I don't really care what the scholars think, right? Gerd Ludemann, he thinks that the guard at the tomb in Matthew's completely made up because it's not in the other gospels. Again, argument from silence.
Right.
And so E.P. Sanders is not considered to be a great scholar. He's basically like, well, the multiple Passovers in John are made up because they're not mentioned in the synoptics. What? Like, why would I listen to a bunch of people that suck at philosophy and basic logic?
Right.
And I'm not saying that everybody in New Testament scholarship is bad. Okay, all of their arguments are bad, but I don't think that they understand like basic reasoning skills, basic logical skills, basic epistemology. They certainly don't understand how Bayes' theorem works whatsoever. And so they can concoct a lot of crap and pass it off as scholarship. And so when somebody like Dan McClellan is like, wow, you dumb apologists don't accept the consensus of scholars, I'm like, big whoopty crap, Dan. Like, it's like, that's like saying like, I don't accept astrologers as a valid field of study. It's like, like big whoop-de-doo. I'm sorry. I don't care if you spent a lot of money sinking it into a degree so you could have a doctorate and feel good about yourself. When your discipline is full of stupid reasoning, then make a valid argument and then I'll care about your degree. So anyways, that's my soapbox, as people can probably tell.
Yeah. You have a bad taste from these scholars, I guess. Yeah.
It's
so,
it's goofy stuff.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe you want to finish your call soon, or I don't know. I have so
you're
like
fine.
looking at the
question.
Yeah, sure. So I am not very good with the New Testament data and stuff like that. So I mean, I watch videos and I think about it. I just am not good enough to find those small nuggets information that I can like Greek or anything like that. So I just find whatever I get from the YouTube, and I mean I don't read that much paper also, so the research papers also. I mean, you could recommend me some things that I can go and read about. Right.
Sure. So and go to just like the recent video I did on don't look at the live page because I don't have it, but if you look at any of the video descriptions that I have, it just automatically includes a link on my blog where I have a whole list of recommended books. And what I recommend people to do, and I'm a YouTuber, so this could sound anti-self-serving, is log off for a while and read books. And the books that I have, a lot of them are public domain and are free. You can download for free. And so go to that blog post. It's linked in every description. It says just recommended books. And they have all kinds of stuff about New Testament historicity issues and things like that. So there's a bunch of them are free. A View of the Evidences for Christianity and Horai Apolloni are two very good books by William Paley that are older, but I think hold up under
William Paley, the designer, who made the designer argument from
same guy.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, he gets into the history stuff too. So those are free books. J.J. Blunt has a book, Undesigned Coincidences. It has
Right.
Old Testament undesigned coincidences, New Testament undesigned coincidences. Those are free. And then
Right.
there are other books that I recommend that are more modern. Testimonies to the Truth by Lydia McGrew. You can download that off a Kindle for $10 off of Amazon.
Right.
Is a good starter place. Can We Trust the Gospels by Peter J. Williams. Good starter places. And then I have more beyond introductory level books that are kind of on that as well. And so a lot of them, again,
Right.
you don't have to get physical copies from Amazon. You could just get Kindle
Yeah.
versions of it. So check that out, and it'll be well worth your time to sit and evaluate. I'm not saying never get on YouTube. If
Yeah.
you do, please watch my channel. But anyway, but yeah, go there and you'll get tons of material.
Right. So do you have any? I mean, this is not not recommendation, but like you think there is some book or some literature that you think that it makes the best case against resurrection. So since you are saying that like these New Testament critics are not that good, so do you think there is anyone who makes a really good case against resurrection or like reliability of gospels?
Against the reliability of the Gospels?
Yeah.
Not particularly against the resurrection. This is going to sound funny because he kind of talks out of both sides of his mouth. And he completely disregards the reliability of the Gospels. But I guess Dale Allison's book, The Resurrection of Jesus, Apologetics, Polemics, and History, would be okay because he'll give you a skeptical case and kind of more of like almost a minimalist case, and he'll just kind of go, "Oh, we don't really know." And everyone's like, "Yay, Dale! He's so neutral and unbiased." And it's like, man, whatever. Why is he so dismissive of more strong reliability kind of arguments? And so Dale Allison would probably be your guy there. Now you could read the Bart Ehrman books, like Jesus Interrupted would be a good start. He talks about a lot of supposed contradictions in there. Did Jesus was Jesus God, or how Jesus became God? He kind of makes some arguments against the resurrection in there that are, okay.
Right.
I think that's right off the top of my head. Those are the two. I know I'm forgetting something. Jesus Inquest is like a book where a guy kind of plays skeptic against himself. It's kind of interesting, but it's written by more of like a layman. But yeah.
Right. So for me, the contradictions in the Gospels, I mean, I don't think that convinces me a lot to say that some document is unreliable. I mean, because there are contradictions that show that the sources are independent, slightly, so they're not like completely copying from each other. So I don't find Bart Ehrman arguments with respect to contradictions very convincing.
No, that's fine. He makes other arguments in there. So, but yeah, anyways, those are just a couple like starter places. I would say Allison's book would probably be the best, but there's a ton of problems with the arguments that he makes in there. When he gets into the whole rainbow bodies thing and stuff like that, Lydia McGrew has like two really ripping good videos debunking the whole
I've watched them.
So that would be a start. To be honest with you, I just don't think there are good arguments against the resurrection.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So just to give before leaving, I just want to understand, like, just to give me brief step in the reasoning from where you say that. So I'll give you my understanding, and you can correct me so that So let's just say I'm arguing with a skeptic, and for the sake of discussion, I'm a Christian. So how to go about? So I will go about like this to say that like New Testament Gospels are reliable. I mean, let's just focus on the Gospels. So Gospels have. So we have this document that that have like manuscripts from, let's just say, 2nd and 3rd century, and that does not mean right. So I'm in this discussion. I'll be Christian. So you tell me like whether the steps in the reasoning is fine, or you think that I need to add more or like less or something like that. So we have this manuscript, so that tells you that goes back to at least the 2nd or 3rd century, and then they're like distributed across the world. So they have to go even earlier, like till 1st century, and then they are referring to the the referring to the events that was happening around Jesus. So there is external corroboration that Jesus existed from Josephus and Tacitus. So that gives you a broad idea, like, okay, the Gospels were written around that time, like first century or something. And then, right.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would probably, I don't think you need to worry about dating. I don't think you need to worry about manuscripts. I wouldn't even get into that with somebody. I would just give them like a few like a few examples of like showing that this is reliable eyewitness testimony. Like just like a little evidence sampler of like some external confirmations, right? So here, let me give you one that I think is pretty cool. Okay. I'll just use Acts, okay? Because Paul was, yeah. So one second here. So if I just had like a minute and I was like, well, they're like, well, how do you know? Like, I would just make the case, like, hey, this is what the apostles claim to have seen. They ate with Jesus, they drank with Jesus. You know, he invited them to touch his wounds. These were multi-sensory experiences. This happened over 40 days. It's not the kind of thing that they'd be mistaken about. And then I would say, and they made they made these claims in the context of great persecution. And they're like, well, the Gospels, those aren't reliable. And I'm like, well, no, check this out. Check this out. And then I would say, listen, here, let me just give you an example. And I would say, listen, I have 2 books where I'm getting these examples from that have dozens and dozens of examples like these. And so here's one. In Acts 27:16, Paul is going to Rome and he gets caught up in a shipwreck. And in this shipwreck, they land on a tiny little island called Cauda, right outside of Crete. Okay. And so Acts 27:9, it places the voyage after the Day of the Atonement. That's dangerous, sailing season or whatever. Now, why does Cauda matter? Okay, here's why Cauda matters. It was 20 miles west-southwest of a likely storm location near the Bay of Masara. That's not an obvious guess. Ancient writers like Pliny, he gets Cauda like way wrong. He has it opposite of Herapitna, 90 miles too far east. Ptolemy, this was the geographer guy of the day, right? He offers a reckoning of latitude and longitude, but he dislocates it by a lot. But Luke, who says he's traveling with Paul, just happens to get it right. And if you could see my map there, it's probably not like the clearest, but that's it right there. It's this tiny, tiny little island. And he gets this precise knowledge. Well, how would he know that, right? And then another example of that is, here's just a simple one to understand, right? Paul is just making this offhanded comment to the Corinthians. And he says, did I commit a sin by humbling myself that I may be exalted because I preached the gospel to you free of charge? He says, I robbed other churches accepting support from them in order to serve you. But when I was with you in need, I didn't burden anyone, for the brothers who came over from Macedonia supplied my need. So I refrained and will refrain from burdening you in any way. Well, it's like, okay, well, what? Paul's like, what is this comment even about, right? But if we go to Acts 18, and it says, did I not? Anyways, if we go to Acts 18, it says that Paul was, when Silas and Timothy arrived from Macedonia, Paul was occupied with the word, testifying to the Jews that Jesus was the Christ. Okay, earlier, he is working full-time with his hands and only preaching on the Sabbath. But then, all of a sudden, he switches up his whole ministry, and he preaches full-time. Well, why does he do that? Well, Acts never explains, right? But it's only when we turn over to the 2 Corinthians that we get this offhanded comment about people coming from Macedonia and giving a big offering. Now we can afford to preach full time, right? And so, but it's like, it's like little things like that intersect, and you could just say, look, I can give you like 2 examples of some external confirmations of like Luke gets this random island right, and then like there's this random detail that intersects between Paul's letters and Acts, and then in Acts 21. It says that Luke was with Paul and like all the elders were present. So he would have had opportunity to talk to eyewitnesses, which is precisely what his prologue says. So
Right.
yeah, like this makes sense. And so there,
Right.
and you can just say, hey, if you're interested, there are dozens of examples like these. And then this is where you go get the books that I'm talking about and you learn these examples. And maybe you get Logos Bible software like I got up here, not getting paid to say this, and you just
Right.
click through your notes and go, look at this, look at this, look at this. And then it's like yeah, that's how I would go about it.
Oh,
Does that make
okay,
sense?
okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you're saying that like the small information, like not small, like this little piece of information that gets intersected between the text, and they are like mutually corroborating, and they are also like not intended to be like talking about, like they are not like intentionally talking about trying to corroborate, like they are just offhandedly just mentioning it, and then like you just find that, oh, this corroborates.
Yeah, exactly. It's offhanded. It's like the one with Kata. That's not something that he could just look up, right? And so that's just like him just sharing knowledge as he knows it. And there he is. Paul is suffering on this ship. He's arrested. He's going to be tried before Rome. This shows that he was sincere about what he believed, and apparently Luke was too, because he's traveling with him. And then you also have Paul, who's sincere. He's literally working with his hands in order to preach this message. And yeah, you have these interlaps, and you have these in the Gospels. You have this in Acts, and so if you can multiply dozens and dozens and dozens of examples of these, it gives you a cumulative case of like, hey, these guys really knew what they were talking about. So does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So just to add to it, and then you can take the next person.
Sure.
So you call it undesigned coincidences, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, these undesigned coincidences act as a like little piece of information that intersect with each other, and then they provide a like kind of a Bayesian boost for New Testament gospel reliability, right? So let's take inverse of that. Like, what happens if I find an information in, like, let's just say Corinthians or like Paul's letters, and then Acts or like Luke, and then they're talking about the same event, something like that, and then there is some kind of a tension between the two events, like the way they are describing. I don't have the example right now. I mean, I'm thinking like that could be a disconfirmation, right? I mean, if we go by this method, would you say that, or would you say that it's not necessarily, you'll have to look into the details and then see whether it is actually contradicting or not, or something like that? Not contradicting, even like
apparent contradictions. Yeah, you mean you
not contradictions, I would say. Like, so the way you are going about with undesigned coincidences, so I mean, I find it very interesting, I would say. Not like they are not like bad arguments, but I'm just worried that I hope there is no like when I'm looking into these undesigned coincidences, I'm not like biased towards just finding them. There is not a selection bias just to find these undesigned coincidences, whereas let's just say there are undesigned uncoincidences. I'm ignoring them. So would you say this something like undesigned uncoincidence, or not uncoincidences, but let's just say undesigned tensions between the text? Would they act as kind of a disconfirmation, even not like strong disconfirmation, like a little bit disconfirmation, if I'm not able to find a good connection, like let's just say not able to solve a tension between the text?
Sure. I mean, history is just messy, so we're not always going to be able to resolve like every single contradiction. But the way, like, historians know that there could be tensions in any kind of narrative, and you're not always going to be able to have a solution. And so if you have dozens and dozens of positive cases that all point in the same direction, and then you do have variation where it is reconcilable, which is what you would expect, because truth just by its very nature is reconcilable with like apparent discrepancy, but like it's like, wait, okay, no, that fits. You could find forward to make it fit. If there was like dozens of like just outright, not even dozens, if there was just outright contradictions that just can't be harmonized at all, and they're not the good faith kind, but they're the kind that you could tell are just from fictionalization and different things like that, then that would be a different problem. And so if anything, it would also be an argument for independence, or at least partial independence, because they're not just copy paste of one another.
Yeah. I agree with that. I agree with the point that like if they are like apparently contradicting, then probably they are independent. It's not completely like they are completely copying pasting from each other. But I am just worried about undesigned coincidences that like I'm not biasing towards just the coincidences that are like harmonizing rather than and not ignoring the coincidences that are like disharmonizing. Let's just say. So I mean, I have an example. I mean, you can tell me, and then I could go after this.
Okay.
So like, what do you think about this? So when like in the Gospels, I think all of the Gospels mention this. Like when the woman went to the empty, find that the tomb is empty, and then there are like angels or like women in white robe or something like that, and the number of a number of angel varies, and the events are described slightly differently. So what do you think about that? Like, how do you think whether they can, even if the total evidence is pointing towards the reliability, do you think these kinds of small tensions can act as a slight nudge to against the reliability?
No, I don't. I mean, it just depends on the contradiction. So, like the one that you gave me, like how many angels at the tomb? Was that the contradiction?
Not necessarily the angels. Like so like in one of the gospels they are describing as men, and then other gospel it's describing angels, and then obviously the number is also varying. But
Oh,
not
sure,
just
sure,
right.
sure. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, Mark 6:15-5 it says that there was one young man. That's it. It just says a man dressed in a white robe. Okay.
Right.
And then so Matthew 28:5 it says the angel said to the women. So it seems to imply one angel. Or
Right.
Luke 24:4 it says when they were perplexed about this, behold, two men stood by them in dazzling apparel. And then when Mary looks at the tomb, she sees two angels in white sitting where the body of Jesus had lain, one at the head and one at the feet. And so that's not a contradiction. First of all,
No, this is not a contradiction. Yeah, I mean, you can obviously explain it by adding like they were just focusing on just one person, one gospel was focusing
sure,
one
and
person,
angels
other
can
gospel was
appear
this.
as men like they do in the Old Testament. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I would like to look into it more, and then maybe I hope that Christianity is true. So I'll just try to look for the evidence and where it leads.
Yeah, no problem. So what I would recommend too, one other thing, we do have a service, talkaboutdoubts.com. It is 100% free, and you are welcome to call. It's well, not call, we could set up an appointment, but basically, yeah, it's Zoom calls, free one-on-one Zoom calls. Whoops. Or you could be a seeker, you could be a doubter, whatever. And so yeah, check that out. Just go to the website, talk about doubts, fill out the form, and we could have multiple longer conversations and go through, unpack all the objections that you have. If you want, well, not all of them, but you know what I mean? We can get you going in the right direction.
I understand.
So yeah, definitely.
Since I'm already since I'm already a theist, like I feel the push towards like having a religion, but I mean I'm also like a bit worried that I don't get committed to one religion before looking at the evidences properly and for and against the position and stuff like that. So I mean I come from the background, I mean I was a Muslim before, so it's just like the kind of argument they make. So I'm like a bit worried that I just don't jump to conclusion just by looking at some of the apologists from like Muslim apologists. Yeah.
The contrast, my friend, will be stark. So yeah, definitely look into it. Check out the books that I recommended. And if you want to avail yourself to this, we're here. It's totally free. We're not like Orthodox Muslim who charges $50 an hour or Muslim Lantern or whatever who charges like $100 an hour. We do this for free, and we got people from all kinds of.
That's really nice of you. You are doing great work, I would say. Yeah. I hope it turns out. I hope Christianity turns out to be true. Okay, maybe I'll talk to you and talk about doubts. Let's see. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. All right. We'll give him a little kick here. Take a quick super chat. We'll go to the next call here. Zach, there's a book called Orthodoxy and the Religion of the Future by Saint Seraphim. I might want to give it a look. I've heard of Saint Seraphim. Sounds like a very cool guy. Yeah, maybe I will. Maybe I will. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the recommendation. Peter, you're up.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Hey, I'm not able to hear you.
Oh,
Okay, let me refresh mine, and I'll get back right in.
Okay. All right. I don't know why that keeps happening with some people. Rise, Peter, kill and eat. Just kidding. All right, let's bring him back.
Hey.
All right, Peter, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. How are you, man?
Good, good.
Okay. I have a question. You know, I'm a seeker. I'm not a believer at the moment, and you know, I I have my doubts about just the Gospels when I read them and how like what their thinking was in the first century when it comes to writing these Gospels. Like, did they really have an experience, or did one of the like say Mary really like wanted Jesus to be something and told everyone and they just started believing in a sense? Like, you know, I do have, it's not like, it's not written anywhere that happened, but in my mind, I'm thinking that like if he really did believe he was the Messiah, but like says to the others that I did see him,
Mhm.
and like we don't have like individual confirmation of them actually meeting Jesus. It's what the authors say, like they've touched Jesus, they ate with
Sure.
Jesus, right?
Yeah.
It's not an individually based, like again, even when we look at the Gospel of Luke, I don't even think, sometimes it makes me, did he attend this to be a gospel? Because he's writing to someone in Theophilus, which we don't even know who that person is. Like what like how did we know that we in the 20th century, these books are for us when it was written for some random guy named Theophilus?
Sure.
Do you understand where I'm coming from? Sorry if
No, you're good. You're good. No, it's a fine question. And so why think that the authors are just making stuff up? I mean, that would be the alternative, right?
no,
And
because
so
you know, I grew up in India. We have gods by the tons.
Mhm.
And people willing to die. Like we have a guy that's in a freezer right now, right? Thinking that he's gonna come back to life. You could Google it, right? So, like
we
where
have
I'm
a few of
born,
those guys here too. But
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But we have different perspectives of how we're thinking, right? So my thinking is, yes, Jesus was this rabbi who preached that the end time is coming, right? And like when he died, like maybe like they just couldn't see, like you know how it is, like hey, he was such a good person and he changed so many lives. Why don't we continue with this story? We could
Mhm.
change more lives, even if that means sacrificing ourselves. Like, you know, because it's changing people. They saw it changing people's lives. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry, I'm hypothetically making this up. I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's true,
Yeah.
right?
I would think
You know
that
what I'm
would
saying?
make I think that would be kind of strain credulity there a little bit. And so
Mhm.
people
No, because you
typically
know,
people
just one
typ-
one
people
little thing.
typically don't undergo labors,
Yeah.
dangers, sufferings, and are willing to accept martyrdom for something that they know like is 100% untrue. Okay, like that's
Mhm.
just so. It's like, is it theoretically possible? Sure. Is it probable? No, it's not very probable
Mhm.
at all. And
What if
so,
they wanted the society to change for that lie?
well, I don't think that they were necessarily trying to change society. And so, what are the odds that they were going to be able to change society for
Because they
such a lie?
saw a lot of people like changing when they
But
saw
that's not
Jesus preach, right?
sure. But I don't think that they're going to, in that particular culture, there was a lot of messiahs, right? In
Oh
that
yeah, yeah.
particular time, Josephus talks about like all kinds of people who claim to be prophets, messiahs, and different things
Mhm.
like that. When your messiah died, you just
The
got a
story
new,
just the
you
story
just
dies with them.
you
Yeah.
got a new messiah. Now, I'm not saying that's an
Mhm.
evidence by itself for the resurrection, but what I am saying is
Mhm.
that is an evidence, that is an argument for like their sincerity of what they said. That I don't think that they were lying. Like, yeah, you
But
could say, sure, that's possible. It's possible that they just completely made this stuff up to improve society, but they're
Mhm.
going to be killed. They're going to be completely forgotten. The odds of that changing radically where they are at was already like slim to basically none if it's just that. And so, like, if that's what
Yeah.
you want to believe to get
No,
out
I'm not
of
believing that.
accepting, well,
Yeah.
right. I'm saying
Yeah.
somebody could, let's just say, if somebody wanted to avoid the evidence,
Mhm.
they could invent something like that. But what I don't care what is like possible. I care what is most probable. And
Probable. Yes. No, you're right.
I don't find that to be particularly like
No.
probable
I under.
that people are going to do that.
No,
I
I
think
understand.
sincerity is a better
Yeah.
explanation. Now,
You know,
the
I asked IP about this as well, but when I
yeah.
was watching Joe Rogan's podcast with
Mhm.
Wes Huff said something very intriguing. He said those times people believed in anything, which I found very interesting that he said that. IP disagreed with that when I asked him this question. This was about 8, 9 months ago. And IP said, no, that is not true. But when Wes said that, really intrigued me. Like, why would he say that? What kind of proof he has that people were easily persuaded to believe in anything at that time?
I don't think
I
that
just,
I remember him making that statement, but that's okay.
yeah.
What's more important to me is, so I think we could rule out, and I'm just, without giving reasons, I'm just going to tell you what I think right now. I could give evidence supporting these reasons, but I
Mhm.
think that it's very unlikely that they were insincere, okay, or lying. I mean, maybe sincerely lying, okay. I don't think that they
Mhm.
were lying. I don't find that particularly probable. I think if
Mhm.
I were a skeptic, I would have to say something like, I think that they were more honestly mistaken. But the problem is that what we have in the Gospels um, are the kind of appearances where they wouldn't just be honestly mistaken, right?
Mhm.
They're not the kind of appearances that one could go, oh yeah, that was just a hallucination or something like that. Because
Mhm.
I mean, when you look at the variety of the resurrection appearance claims,
Mhm.
there's tons of them, right? I mean,
Mhm.
there's appearances in Judea, Jerusalem, they're in Galilee, they're in the town, they're in the city, they're on a countryside by a road, indoors, outdoors. He
Where did
comes
you
in the
get this?
morning,
So that
evening.
screen?
This is just a note in Logos, but I'm just
Oh, okay.
these are all the verses describing the appearances, right?
Okay.
And so Jesus shows up by prior appointment. He just shows up sometimes.
Mhm.
They describe close-up encounters. I mean, it says that the women took hold of his feet and worshipped him. I mean, it's kind of hard to mistake
No.
hallucinating a
You're
foot.
right. You're right.
When Jesus says, "See my hands and my feet, that it is myself, touch and see." That's kind of something that's difficult to be mistaken about. When Thomas or when Mary Magdalene grabs Jesus and he says, "Don't cling to me," well, that's kind of hard
Mhm.
to be mistaken about.
Mhm.
And so Thomas, when it says, "Put your finger here and see my hands and place it in my side, do not disbelieve but believe," that's kind of hard to be mistaken about. When they're
Mhm.
eating fish, they're eating breakfast on the seashore of Galilee, and they're like handing each other a meal. That's kind of difficult to be mistaken about.
Mhm.
And these are group appearances. And so what you're going to have to say, and this is what most people would say, so I'm just kind of like trying to give you the best
Mhm. No.
like version of the argument, is that
I
this stuff is
respect
made
it.
up. Like this is just made up. Like they
Yeah.
just
No.
made these stuff.
I totally understand what you're saying. How
Yeah.
much? Okay. Is this a good software, Logos? I was looking into it. It's quite costly, but like, is it worth
Uh,
it?
well, for me, it is. For what I'm doing, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, I totally think it's worth it.
Okay.
But yeah. So, I mean, you don't need Logos to learn what I'm talking about, though.
Okay. No. I've subscribed to your channel. I've been looking through it. Right. I'm genuinely seeking, and I
Yeah,
will
yeah.
look through it more. And a
That's good.
final thing. Did you see Dan McClellan's versus Joshua Sajwadi? And
They talked.
yeah, yesterday on the what's that guy's name? Uh, he
Glenn Scrivener.
Glenn's podcast. Yeah,
I
they
saw a
spoke.
thumbnail pop up. If I
Yeah, they had a
they,
2 hour
they,
discussion. Yeah, well, it wasn't a debate per se. It
I
was
think
more
that
of a
would be a
discussion.
philosophical bloodbath.
No, they had 2 hour discussion. It
Right.
was
I'm
very good.
saying
Yeah,
Joshua is a very nice guy. But
but they
it
had
was
both of them
way.
had very strong points. So it wasn't like one way or the other.
You think
But it
so?
wasn't even a formal. But it was a good discussion with
I will
them
definitely
both.
watch that because philosophically, I think Dan is weak, and I think Joshua is strong. Now, maybe understanding the lay of
It
biblical
was more of a
scholarship, Dan, would,
understanding each
yeah,
other's points, where it wasn't a
okay,
debate like, "Hey, you're wrong and I'm
yeah,
right"
yeah,
type of discussion. It was more of like, what at the end of the day, uh, Testify, like, sometimes, even like, I'm not, I'm a true seeker, but sometimes really do wonder, like, is Jesus a mediator, or is he God himself, Yahweh himself? Like, when we look, like you were bringing up the passage of when he tells Mary, "Do not touch me. I have not ascended to my God, your God, like my Father, your Father," right? Like, did he? Why? Like, sometimes I just wish that, I'm not Muslim or anything. I don't get, like, but, like, why couldn't he directly say, was there a reason for it? Because, like, it's vague. I know it's, like, we gotta read through the text, like, we gotta read between the lines, but, even, like, I know, like, you've done a video on John 17:3 and other places. Even Paul calls him a mediator between God the Father. I know IP believes in monarchical trinity, which means that three of them are God, but Father has the main role, right?
something like that.
You right? I don't see. I'm trying to understand that perspective, because I'm trying to believe in that. Like, how is
Sure,
the
sure.
Father, like, that's what Joshua, uh Zwada was talking about with Dan, that he kind of has a similar position as the Father, being, what do you call it?
He's definitely a monarchical Trinitarianism.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's like
But
the
he
guy.
has like, he had like a different take on what other people have a
Well,
monarchical
as far as like
Trinity.
a philosophical model, I just don't get into all the metaphysics of that because it's just
Mhm.
not the area that is particularly
What would you
interesting.
recommend that I should study?
I would
Is what I wanted to.
find out if
Yeah.
Jesus actually claimed to be God.
Okay.
A decent book on that is Brant Petrie. It's not Case for Jesus. It's a different one. Jesus and Divine Christology. I would also get. Sorry, I'm turning my head. The Incarnate Christ and His Critics, which is just more theological, but it uses all of the Bible, not just whether or not Jesus claimed to be God. But The Incarnate Christ and His Critics by
The
Robert Bowman and
incarnate
Ed Kemishevsky. Yeah, or you could just
or
do,
Bowman.
yeah,
Can you
Bowman
write
and
that in the chat so I could,
Tomaszewski.
or 'cause I'm in the car right
Um,
now. So,
yeah. No, you're good.
this is gonna be pasted afterwards, right? So I'll just go back to this. So,
Yeah, that's fine. But no, I think Jesus very clearly claimed to be God. You got to go.
oh, yes, I have to go now, but
Oh,
thank you
okay.
so much for the
Yeah.
discussion, and
Yeah,
God
no worries.
bless you.
All right.
And thank you
Yeah.
for, like, your ministry and your help.
Yeah. Hey, if you ever want to talk like at length, just go
Yeah,
to talkaboutdoubts.com. Totally free. Fill out the form and we can unpack your doubts and talk
we'll
in more
definitely do
detail.
that. Thank you so much, brother.
Yep.
God
Sounds good.
bless.
Yep. Take care. All right. Let's see. I was all primed to give him a bunch of reasons why Jesus claimed to be God. Bro Delicious. What up, bro? Bro, you there? Bro. Seriously, bro. You there? All right. He's getting kicked. All right. Well, we're at the 2-hour mark. I don't have anybody else. We'll check the chat super quick and then I might go. Jesus and Divine Christology by Petrie is a good one. Yes, it is. Here, let's give a little sampler. This is one that I got from Petrie, and then we might wrap it up here. This is what I was going to get into him. As far as Jesus claiming to be God, I'm KGB. Yes, bro. But seriously, bro. Seriously. Anyways, here's an example of I think Jesus claimed to be God, but he's doing it in a very kind of sneaky, not overly obvious, get myself crucified kind of way, but something that Jews would go, what? And that is, Jesus says in Matthew 10:37, Whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, right? And then Luke 14:26, I mean, it's pretty strong. He says, if anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father or mother, or wife or children and brothers, even his own life, he cannot be my disciples. And so it's like, this is a pretty strong statement by Jesus here. And so he's placing loyalty to himself above a very sacred human obligation, especially in Judaism, because Exodus 12 or 2012 says, honor your father and mother. That's like one of the big 10 right there, right? And so to dishonor your parents was actually a way to dishonor God. Philo, who y'all should probably know, a Jewish philosopher, contemporary of Jesus in Alexandria, he said, for parents themselves are something between the divine and human nature, partaking of both, of human nature inasmuch as it is plain they have been born and that they will die, and the divine nature because they are engendered other beings and have brought what did not exist into existence. In my opinion, what God is to the world, that their parents are to their children, since just as God gave existence to that which had no existence, they, in imitation of his power, as far at least as we're able, make the race of mankind everlasting. And so he's saying, like, hey, like, this is the logic behind honoring your mother and father. Like, he's expositing the Ten Commandments here. And then Josephus says, in Against Appian, he says, the law ordains also that parents should be honored immediately after God himself. Immediately after God himself. Where does Jesus place himself, right? He puts himself above the parents, right? So Josephus, first century Jewish historian, is saying, like, they come right after God, and Jesus is saying, I come before your parents, right? And then there's even the story about disciples that said to him, Lord, let me first go and bury my father. Jesus said to them, follow me and let the dead bury their own dead. It's like, whoa, like, what's going on there? We see in Tobit, this is, of course, in the deuterocanonical books or apocryphal books, but this is Jewish intertestamental stuff going on here. Tobit says, and he called him and said, my son, when I die, bury me. And then we see a similar thing in Sirach 38:16. Ben Sirach, my son, let your tears fall for the dead. And as the one suffering previously begin the lament, lay out his body, the honor due him, and do not neglect his burial, right? Jesus places immediate discipleship above even that duty. So this is kind of a big deal. The Shema commands total love for God and honor for parents. Jesus redirects supreme allegiance to himself. How do you say that if you're not divine, right? How do you say that if you're not God? That's pretty heavy stuff. And so there's another place. Let's see here. Talk about Jesus claiming to be God. 9:15, I believe. I think I'm right. Yeah, this is Matthew 9:15, and it says, and Jesus said to them, can the wedding guests mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast. Okay, so Jesus calls himself the bridegroom, right? He identifies himself. That's who he is. He's saying that when his own presence determines whether fasting is appropriate or not. This isn't just a random wedding metaphor, because we see in Isaiah 54:5, it says that your maker is your husband. So Jesus calls himself the bridegroom. Isaiah says your maker is your husband. And this isn't just in one place. Isaiah 62:5, for as a young man marries a young woman, so shall your sons marry you. As a bridegroom rejoices over the bride, so God will rejoice over you. So then we see Hosea 2:19-20, where it talks about, I will betroth you to me forever. I will betroth you to me in righteousness and in justice and steadfast love and mercy. I will betroth you, betroth. This is, again, husband-wife language there. And then he talks about in Ezekiel, so this is 3 different prophets here. When I passed by you again and saw you, and behold, you were in the age, and there's the whole thing where he spreads his garment over them, covers their nakedness. He betroths them. He enters into a covenant. He's talking about rebellious Israel, right? Yahweh is the husband of Israel. Jesus says, I'm the bridegroom. It's a very subtle way of calling himself God there and claiming to be God. And so saying that like he's not God, it's kind of weird because Jesus claims to be God. There is another verse. We'll look at one more. This is Matthew 23:34. And it says, therefore I send you prophets and wise men and scribes. Some of them you will kill and crucify. Some of them you will flog in your synagogues and persecute from town to town. Okay. So Jesus says, God will send prophets? No. Jesus says, I'm sending you prophets. Well, who sends prophets, right? Jeremiah 7:25, from the day that your fathers came out of the land of Egypt to this day, I have persistently sent all my servants, the prophets, to them day after day, right? Jeremiah 25:4, you have neither listened nor inclined your ears to ear, although the Lord persistently sent you all his servants, the prophets. And then 2 Chronicles 36:15, the Lord, the God of the fathers, sent persistently to them by his messengers, referring to the prophets, right? And they kept mocking them, despising his words, scoffing at them. That's exactly what Jesus said was going to happen with the apostles. I'm sending them to you. And so who sends prophets but God? So Jesus is claiming the honors of God here. I think I'll try and take one more call. Have to be on the quick side. All right. I don't know the name there, but you're up, sir.
I appreciate you taking my call. Peace unto this house. I'm not trying to do anything negative. I just kind of chimed in a little bit late. What is the like your objective? Is it just to kind of discover truth or analyze like if there's lies, or
We're just looking at the New Testament and if it is reliable, mostly from a historical standpoint.
right? And do you have any problems with it being historically correct?
No, I'm arguing that it is very historically reliable.
Yeah. Have you ever tried to look at the scriptures in a different way?
I listen to people who are critical and would say the opposite of what I believe. So yeah.
Well, you got to stay away from, well, okay, so the scriptures kind of dictate one thing, is nobody really knows what they're doing. Some people who do know what they're doing it to make you fall. So if you just stand back and go, what does his word say to me? And you allow him to talk to you, you kind of get this idea that when Christ is talking, he's talking like he's walking you through your life and how you're going to feel and look.
Well, on a personal level, I'm going to treat his word as inspired, and I'm going to accept it as truth and let it guide my life. But the point of this live stream is just for people who maybe have doubts, questions, or seekers, and maybe they don't know that the New Testament is reliable. I'm just talking to them and trying to help them see that it is trustworthy and true.
Oh, absolutely. And the best standpoint to, that I take for all of this is, if the Father could make us and he could build our bodies and make this whole world, could he write us a love letter that would never get messed up? And it makes sense to me to go, of course, a loving Father that's in control should be able to give us a word, because he said in his word he could give us a way to salvation. Now, if men screw it up, there's no way to find him.
So yeah, no, I don't mean to interrupt. I just I was wrapping up. Did you have like a question on the topic, or you just, or I'm not trying to be rude or cut you off or anything. I just
I appreciate it. No, I'll let you
for the sake of my time. I just am seeing, like, do you have a specific question about the topic itself? Because I want to just stick to the purpose of the stream.
Well, I was just trying to reinforce that you say God's word, can you rely on it? And if you have that standpoint that if there is a higher power that can communicate something to you, no man could mess it up. So I know, there's several neat features to scriptures that I could show you that are you know, like there's hidden codes throughout the whole thing, and there's no other books that can structurally do that. But yeah, I'm not trying to keep you on. I was just, you know, I'm glad you're promoting his word. Just the whole, everything stemmed around one thing, and that is loving somebody more than yourself.
Sure. Yeah,
If you look at that, there's no way you can go wrong with his word. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Well, praise God, man. All right. Well, thanks for coming up.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Real quick, if you're still out there, what was this guy's name? I didn't mean to kick him. Bro Delicious. I'm so sorry, man. You weren't able to type and I had to kick you. He said he'll come back. Okay. Anyways, I apologize. I didn't mean to kick you. You came up and then I didn't hear anything. And then you came back in the studio. And sometimes people just do that because they just want to watch in studio for some reason. So nothing personal. Please come back next time. I'll be doing these Tuesdays and Thursdays for the rest of the month around the same time. And then we'll push them out a little later to reach a bit of a different audience starting in June and just kind of through the summer. So hope you guys are getting stuff out of this. Hope this is helpful. Continue to come back and support the channel. We'll be doing other kind of videos. I still would like to review Alex O'Connor's debate with Trent Horn and talk about that. So be looking for stuff along those lines. And then, yeah, we'll probably just be coming up with other things. Let me know of any topics you guys want me to cover, things that you might want me to react to, and we'll just keep doing what we're doing. We'll just keep doing it. We'll just keep doing it. So, all right, we'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.